Welcome tankers, this is Destronov and this is my first video in the OP series. This is a series where I will kind of look into the most overpowered tanks in the game. And this is what we start with, TDs, and these are the points we're gonna walk through. The idea to this video came up when I was just surfing around and I came to this site, Replays, where people can put up their best replays or whatever replays. And what I saw was that some kind of tanks were quite overrepresented. So I wanted to see exactly how overrepresented they were. So I made a small compilation and this is what I found. I compiled these statistics during week 15 and I'm not sure how representative this is from the normal games, but what I found was this. You can see in the bottom left corner, you can see the FV215B, it's represented 35%. That means 35 matches out of 100 in the top 100 damage games. You have the FV. To the right, you can see the Waffenträger. It's represented with the green part of the circle diagram, and the Waffenträger has 17 games. Otherwise, you can see there's a lot of TDs. It's actually 78% of the total chart is represented by tank destroyer games. One arty do we find, and that's a British gun carrier, and we do find like 10 or 11 mediums and a couple of heavies. I think we all knew that tank destroyers were going to be overrepresented in this category, but this was a bit surprising to me that in total of 78 games you had tank destroyers, and of course over 50% was represented by the Waffenträger and the FV215B. So for me this kind of leads me to ask some questions. And the first question is, of course, is this vehicle balanced? Is the Waffenträger E100 balanced? Let's look at some of its damage stats, damage output stats. Well, as I said, it's represented 17 times in the top 100 games. For me, it's like I thought this would be the most represented tank. But what you can see, it's the damage per shot is 750 and 560 depending on what gun you mount on it. And it's an autoloader. Penetration is 334 with the bigger gun and 352 with the smaller gun. It has a 60 shell capacity and the maximum damage capacity, that is if it would hit all of its shots in the magazine. It would average around 45,000 with the big gun and 33,600 with the smaller gun. This is by far the most the tank with the biggest damage capacity. Let's look at the FV. The FV, as I said, is the most represented tank in the top 100 damaging games on Replays, and it has a damage output of 1,750 per shot and a penetration of 250. And it has 12 shells, and the damage capacity, if it would hit all its shots, it's 21,000 total in damage. I do know that, of course, this cannon has its drawback. It doesn't have the greatest accuracy, and it doesn't have the best reload time. It's 50 seconds reload and so on. But still, I mean, when it's represented 35 times out of the top 100 games on Replays, then I think there's something going on with the balance. I think it's quite overpowered in random games. Well, with all this being said, well, you could argue that these tanks are supposed to be damage dealers, and they do need their scouts, they do need information about the enemy and so on. But then again, all the other TDs are also supposed to make damage. And still you have this strange imbalance between the different tank destroyers. Another type of tank that you could also say should deal damage is of course the artillery, but it's only represented one time total in this top 100. I'm not sure how representative this is of the normal games, but this was what I found on week 15 when I was compiling these stats. I will kind of keep an eye out for it and see if this is a trend that's keep on repeating itself. If it is, and which I think it is, I think it's the Waffentrager and I think it is the FW 215B that is the most represented high damaging tanks in this game at this moment. If this keeps on repeating itself, I think something has to be done about the balance of the game. These tanks are definitely limited in, for example, clan wars. They are, because they are so they are quite limited in their tactical uses. You can put them on special places and in special maps and so on. So in clan wars they are not very useful to some extent. But in random games, when they deliver these kind of damages, I just find them very overpowered. Over 50% of the games, of the top 100 damaging games, these two vehicles are the tanks that make this damage. As I said, in one case you have an artillery, and some like 10 games are represented by mediums and 10 games are heavy tanks or something. 78% total are represented by tank destroyers. To me, this is imbalanced. I don't think it's funny. You know, I've been one-shotted quite a couple of times by this FV, and I've been tracked by the first shot of the Waffentrager, and then you just feel the autoloader slamming into your side, and then you're dead. I think this removes some of the skill from the game. I think this is what I call one-click wonder tanks. You just have to push the button and then your enemy is dead, or you have to just push the button and keep auto firing in, and then it's dead. The enemy is dead. Something should be done about these tanks. I think they are nice as concepts, but they are at this moment definitely too overpowered in random games, and this is by the sheer output of damage that they deliver. And you can also see quite inexperienced players who has these tanks and they still can do great games, and they cannot do these kind of games in other tanks. When you have more experienced and better players who can deliver quite good damage in almost any kind of tier 10 vehicle. So this is pretty much what I wanted to say about this. If you think this video was interesting, please consider subscribe to my channel. More is coming up, and please like if you liked what I had to say and liked the information I brought. So I hope we can see something done with these tanks, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you. This is Destronov, over and out.